All right, hello and welcome to another episode of the Revenue Revolution podcast, sponsored by Jointflows. Today we're joined by Tom Smith. Tom, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. Tom is currently at Imagino, has had an illustrious career to date, but we'll let Tom say that introduction as well. But thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Good to see you both again. Work at Imagino. We are a customer data platform. We're doing things very differently in the market currently. I have had a career that has spanned over selling many things. I started selling my uncle's shellfish off the Scottish Highlands on his boats down to some of the London fish markets. I've sold windows, second-hand cars, and now I'm in the Martech space. So very varied sales.
There's nothing this boy can't sell.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, look, thanks for joining us. Let's jump straight into it then. Obviously, with that vast experience that you have, there's lots of knowledge that comes with it as well. Let's start off by talking about the changing landscape at the moment. We can see that things are changing for AEs. What changes are you seeing and how are you overcoming them?
Yeah, an interesting question. A lot has changed, to be honest. I think particularly post-COVID, particularly in the world of selling Martech, my pipeline went kaput once COVID hit. Marketing budgets got decimated. Life was very good at that point. I thought I was really getting somewhere. And yeah, everything changed. Budgets weren't there. And I think we really had to, as salespeople, we really had to boil things back. Listen to the customer more, stop trying to sell your product, listen to the challenges, solve real pain points, help people build use cases for further investment. Generally listen to the customer more, and momentum was absolutely everything at that point. Nurturing that customer, generally, listening to them and solving problems really. This has been the key. I think salespeople have often pushed products, and now this is no longer, you just can't do it anymore. You've really got to solve a problem, talk to the right people, get your use case into the right people, and get up to the top as quickly as you can.
Yeah. And I think that's something we've seen across the board, whether it's Martech, sales tech, fintech. And there's usually, you've got two areas you need to then focus on. A is how do you recover from it and what tactics do you put in place? And then what often is even more important is how do you set the expectation internally? Because there's quite a bit of pressure, obviously, coming from the drop in pipeline and getting behind numbers. Like, how did you manage that?
It's a really good question. I think, good question. Yeah, I think as I think my mindset, just to boil it back, really, my mindset changed phenomenally post-COVID. Managing that was getting internal stakeholders within your own business to gather around you. So, it's gathering people that are engineers, it's gathering marketers that can actually talk the same language, who have been in the same problems as the people that you're selling to. It's really boiling down the pain point and, what the ask is. Getting that message around internally, pulling together a team who are going to be able to solve that problem. I think, particularly in the world I'm in, you've got to stay in your corner with salespeople. People that I'm selling to often have degrees in data science or engineers, been doing marketing for 20 odd years. You have to get a team around you who can understand that problem, who have lived in that problem. And then you have to drive. So you have to make those relationships. You have to be in front of all the right stakeholders. You need to be relaying the pain points. I think you've just really got to be that human side as well. How was that? Can you give me some feedback? Where did we go wrong? Where can we improve? Has that solved your problem? And keeping the momentum going, and driving it to the right people.
Yeah, sorry. You mentioned getting to the right people a couple of times now, getting use cases to the right people, getting in front of the right people at the right time. And I think you've really struck a chord there, because what we're seeing at the moment is that multi-threaded approach is extremely important. You can't just rely on having one champion or one sponsor within the buying side. How is it that or what strategies are you using to ensure you're able to include additional stakeholders on the buying side as well? How do you empower that process?
I think at an early stage, it's been data driven. And I think, again, after COVID, it was really, understanding the accounts that you have, understanding who you've sold to before, and understanding who the right person may be in that business. Everything's about adding value. So I think you've got to be hitting the note with the person and the world that they're in. You can't speak to an IT person the same way that you speak to a marketing person or an engineering person. I think it's just about having a very honest human conversation with those people. Obviously, you have to be annoying at times. There is still that element of sales. You've still got to just get in front of them. And then, understanding their side of it, understanding what's causing them a headache, and then I always think trying to actually build a use case with someone rather than trying to sell to them. So understanding where they're coming from and why they might not like your solution and what the pain point might be there. And then, bringing them in together in a room and ironing it all out. And as the salesperson, coordinating that conversation and making sure the right people there connecting. And then, as you say, following up, writing your executive summaries, that sort of stuff, all those kinds of things. And the data, listen to your data and action on that.
I've got a similar background to you, Tom, where I've been selling to people who were in a different industry. So like I've done some time at Tiny Clues, and we were selling to CRM people, and often they have data science knowledge, and ask hits about my maths level. It's not that great.
It's not good. It's not good. How do you I can double check all the math?
Terrible. It's terrible. How do you consistently bring in the right people on your side and get that motion in place where everybody's aligned internally and everybody's following your lead? There can be a lot of politics involved. There can be a lot of mixed messages.
In truth, I've had a lot of experience in the last 18 months of RFPs, and the first couple I would say were absolute chaos. And particularly, I've been following you guys for some time. Process is key. So I think learning from the first couple of RFPs I did that were chaotic, right at the start, you have to get everyone in a room that you think is relevant, and you have to be bullish and say, can you talk to me about your experience? Have you done something like this with a client that looks like that? And cutting people out quickly of that conversation. And then I think internally, like you said, to people that are political, it always is with an RFP, people want to own it and it wants to be theirs for a win. You need to make them also feel a champion internally, to make them feel valued in this process, because I think a lot of people can just get a bit hacked off at they're getting pulled in at the last minute to write a big part of an RFP or something like that. So internally, selling is just as important as the sell externally. I think that, to be honest, that was really a fairly simple part of it. You've just got to nurture those relationships internally and, draw on people's experience that they've had, make them feel empowered. But you need a smallish team. I think I've learned that very quickly that, you can't have too many voices in here, and you need those people to be able to also sell and be good at understanding customers' problems and talk about their problem rather than your solution. As you mentioned, a lot of the people that we deal with are engineers and they love talking about product. You need people to talk about the problem rather
than language. I've got different languages altogether, whether it's technical or just accent based. Like for me, it's hard to communicate.
Feel your pain.
I want to peel things back just a little bit around, I guess, the ability to generate pipe as well. So obviously within your current setup at the moment, you're doing 360, so you're generating ops as well. What strategies are you putting in place to be able to do that? Because often when the team is a little bit more slim, it's difficult to do things, in a big way. So what kind of strategies are you seeing are working, or are you trying to do?
Yeah, so I am currently doing the 360 role. I've just joined as the first UK salesman on the ground. A lot of the content we have is still in French, and as you can tell by the voice, I'm not French. So I think, and again, at a startup, it's exciting, and that's why I love doing this. Initially, it's leaning on people for favors. So it's going to your network, the people that you've added value to before, the people who genuinely see you as a human being rather than a salesman, going to them with your proposition. Say, can I play this to you? What does it resonate? Is it of interest? Fair play. If not, I'm not gonna hunt you down on it. So going to your network, originally your own network, getting out there, sort of learning the proposition as I've been going, refining that. And then secondly, leveraging the people around me. The people in Imagino are extremely senior people from our industry. They've seen a problem in the market, and we want to solve that problem and be different to the rest of the space. So then it's leveraging the people internally to go to their connections and get intros that way. But then I think that it's not something salespeople have much of his time, and particularly in the sales cycles that we have, 6 to 12 months is quite common. It's building the beast of demand gen. So talking to the market about the challenges that they're experiencing, saying, look, we've got a fresh approach here. Can you spare me 30 minutes? Can we go for a coffee? Can I talk to you about this? That is a slog. But as you say, the market's changed. And I think you've got to add value. You've got to solve a real problem for people to even entertain a 30-minute conversation with, it just, life's tough in sales currently.
Yeah. I think you've hit a note there as well, where when you have a different way of solving things, so what you're saying is you're able to solve things in a different way. It's as much as the education for the market to be aware of that offering as well as it is, just pigeonholing you with everyone else. Are you seeing anything unique to be able to deliver against this?
Say that one again. Explain that one again. Slightly different.
Yeah. So if you're solving things in a different way to everybody else, so there's a bit of education that's required for the market as part of that process as well. So are there any strategies that you guys put in place to do this, to deliver that education to the market?
Definitely. We've got a phenomenal marketing team who are talking about CDPs in a completely different light. We are going at our competition quite aggressively, to be fair. But secondly, yeah, it's educating people that CDPs are, or customer data platforms. You don't have to buy this huge behemoth of another data platform. We're all about enabling agility. Not selling you the big beast, so actually adding value, connecting data sources that are needed rather than selling you a whole nother data source. And a strategy within our marketing at the minute is just educating people that is possible. In our market, I don't think anyone actually has really thought about that. So as I've gone to some of my warm network, we've been saying, look, you don't have to buy another huge data platform. We can just come in and connect some data sources so that you can actually get the data you need to actually go and do the campaigns that you need to deliver on. So yeah, it's the education piece. It's talking to your network. It's saying, it's asking for feedback. Does that actually resonate? Does that actually make sense? And it's working well, definitely. But as you say, that education piece is not quick, and time is not something that salespeople have. So
fair enough. And again, it's all about managing expectations as well internally. Tom, during your intro, you mentioned having sold into very different industries, right? What's the common theme across these industries, whether you're selling on the fish market or
common theme? I think you've got to make it very simple. I know it's such a cliche, but I think sales it's about people by people. I'd like to think people do like me. We have some great connections with people that you can actually go and ring and say, look, I think this is really relevant to you. I hope you trust me. Can I spare 30 minutes of your time? And momentum. My major word in sales is momentum. You have to track everything. You have to follow the data that you have. You have to be very clear in what the prospect wants, and you have to keep momentum, and you have to get to the top very quickly. There's no time at the minute to be starting at the bottom and working the whole way up. It just doesn't work. So you've got to shoot your shot at the top and keep the momentum going.
Yeah. And I know it seems like relationship building is really important to you, as it is to a lot of salespeople, buy people. How do you go around building such great rapport as well? Like, for full transparency, I've only spoken to you a couple of times, but I can already tell you're a likable guy. I fancy having a couple of pints.
Definitely.
I have no issues with it at all, right? So how do you go about bringing that? What's unique to you that allows you to build this kind of rapport?
To be honest, good point. I have worked at startups, and I've always thought, or startups or small businesses, and I've usually been a lone wolf in my sales career. So the last, say, 7 or 8 years, I've been the voice of a business, and I'm fairly fortunate in that, because I've been the relationship of all of the everything that a company has done outbound, really. So I think a lot of my value has been in actually creating a lot of events, connecting like-minded people. That's been a huge part of my success. Actually sitting in a room with 2 marketeers from the same industry and letting them talk about the problems. People don't want to listen to salespeople. And I think, generally just having people who sound like other people in a room talking about the problems from the same sector has, I've got some of my best deals out of things like this. And then I think, again, it's just a human element. Connecting people, trying to add value, sending them useful things. This is how you can squeeze your budget here. I think sales, you can't overcomplicate it.
No, I agree. And I think what I really liked about you, Tom, is like you're quite keen to help without expecting anything in return. And I think this is something that is becoming more rare in this industry, specifically when things are not necessarily going well, macroeconomically speaking. People are trying to get a trade-off really early on.
Yeah.
And what I really like is that I think paying forward is the wrong term, because it's kind of expecting something back, but just be helpful, like
Definitely.
Try to connect with people. Is there a way to do that you feel like works better?
I don't know about a specific. I think your point is it's not transactional. You can't expect something back immediately. I think a really good anecdote I have was post-COVID, when my pipeline went kaput. We really honed in on, right, how do we help people after COVID? Marketing budgets have been slashed. No one has any cash for me anymore. So what can we do now? It's help people squeeze the marketing budget they have. Talk to people about that. Talk to people how they can actually engage with the customers better with less cash. And we did this for a good 6 to 12 months. We built an absolute beast of a demand engine. And in truth, at the time, I was getting extremely frustrated because we were getting nowhere. And one day I got 3 phone calls of 3 people who just changed jobs. A lot of people were changing jobs in COVID, and they said, Tom, I've not replied to many of your emails, I've not replied to many of your phone calls, but I've been listening from a distance. And all 3 of those people came to me and said, I know exactly what you do. I know exactly what's the problem you solve. Can you help me? And it was the word help. Like, I don't like telling people that I want to help them, because it just sounds daft. But they came back to me with that and said, you look like you can help. Can you come and engage with some of our stakeholders here? Because I think you can fix this project. And it's things like that. Yeah, transactions don't exist, I don't think, with people. Buyers buy when they want to buy, I believe. You can push it along as quickly as you can try. But it's creating value.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. I'm a big believer in that. Just do the right thing. Just continue to do the right thing. Be a good guy. That's all you can do. And if you do that, it will come back tenfold. It's interesting what you said, is you've always been a bit of a lone wolf. You've always been the voice of a business, and that's not necessarily the route everybody goes for. So, for me personally, I've gone from like really, really big companies and
there you go. Like every episode.
It's relevant to the question, right? So work my way down, and I enjoy a smaller environment, more startup, closer to startup the better. Which is why obviously I am where I am. But it looks like you were just off that mindset from the very beginning. Other people would prefer to work at bigger companies. Well, what is it that you like about being in this type of environment? What compels you to do that?
I think it's making a difference, to be honest. I don't know why early on in my life, I just thought, it was very like an abstract thought, but I just thought working at a big corporate, you won't have the opportunity to really do something differently. And I think working at a startup and working with some great people, and actually becoming a fairly data-driven salesperson, starting at the top of funnel, following your data, learning, what job titles, what industries, what resonates with certain messages, and actually owning that process and managing that process through till close. And I think you live in the shoes of those buyers as deeply as you can. And I think that's yielded at this point in my career, really, when you can actually really understand things quite quickly about people, and you have quite a good overview of the market. And I've loved that part of this. Don't get me wrong, startups are hard. The process is never given to you, and I think as salespeople we often expect that, but it's never really happened. So it's the ability to own my own process, and I think that's another very cliched word, but I would say it's fairly customer centric. You're doing things that the prospect wants, that you're talking to the customer about the things they care about, and I think hopefully that's where people see me adding value.
Yeah, I think you said something interesting there as well about owning the process. In this type of environment, accountability is key, and you can't hide. There's no hiding spaces as well. So well done to you, man, for pursuing in this way. It's not for everybody, but it's very rewarding.
It is. It's a long way to go here at Imagino, but the challenge is always why we do this, isn't it? So,
and Tom, I've seen a lot of people like yourself taking on a big project and a big challenge because they kind of like the rush and the over almost the financial return. Is more like having done something very difficult that not a lot of people would do. And I also see that as being quite consuming sometimes on the personal side. Like how do you draw a line between what happens to you at work and then what happens to you at home, and try and not have everything overlap?
It's tough, to be fair. It can be quite, as I say, I have been a lone wolf for a long time now, and it can be all consuming at times. To my point before around after COVID, that was all consuming. Everyone was locked inside. It was rough. You questioned everything really about yourself when you couldn't even get someone on the phone for half an hour. But you have to understand that also people in marketing were fighting fires really at the time. How do you solve that? It's leaning on people around you. I've got people like you guys in my life who are very helpful. It's leaning on the mentors, things like this. People who have been there and done that, I can say, look, just keep going. And it's often the way in sales. You just got to keep going. And one day you're going to get on the phone to someone who's got that challenge, right moment, right time. It's tough, but as you say, you do get financially rewarded for it, and that's why we all do it. I wouldn't have it any other way, really, though. I love it.
And you seem like you're quite self-aware. So in terms of what you know and what you don't know, how do you go about, I guess, what mechanisms do you use to fill these gaps, and how do you go about discovering where you have opportunities to improve?
I think, you've got to be really honest with yourself as a salesperson. Salespeople typically have very big egos. And particularly in the world that I'm in, I think my boss actually, Lindsay McEwen, he's from an army background, and he always mentions the note of watch your corner. You have to stick in your corner and do your job. Don't try and do someone else's job who's technical. Stay in your lane, do your job, get the momentum going, make sure the right people are in front of us. And watch your corner.
Tom, there's an element of progression as well, especially within your profile, where you've moved up from like creating pipeline to actually closing pipeline to now opening a new market. And fair play to you, because opening a new market is very tough, and the expectation is often very high, and actually the way to get there is much longer than what can come across as being quite easy. I've done it at Tiny Clues, like
you see that little plug about it.
It's the blueprint for this.
I've done it before. It's not for everyone, but I know how to do it.
What I'm saying is it's way harder than it seems, and there's a grind, but there's also consistency and grit part of the role. Like how do you build up a career so that you get to do what you're currently doing as a new BDR or someone new to sales?
I'd love to say it was linear, like the story just sort of. I think taking your chances is massive in sales. You've got to shoot for the stars always. I've literally gone from selling everything and anything to going into a world that's fairly technical. And you've got to believe in yourself as a salesperson. You've really got to believe that you can ask that difficult question and get that deal over the line. A lot of the time you still actually think, how the hell did I get that done? And it still often does hit me quite a lot. You just think, I don't actually know how I did that there, but there's never anything linear, but it's draft. And but yeah, self-belief, you've got to believe that you can get there. You've got to have a vision. You've got to have a plan. You have to be organized and data driven. Sales is that now. And I think to your point around process before, you've got to learn from what went well and what didn't. What struck a chord with certain deals, with certain people in certain sectors. You have to record that, and that has to be visible in every point of your sales life. You have to live and breathe that. And those opportunities come in front of you now and again, and you've got to take them.
Yeah. And one thing we touched on is how hard it is now to create more pipelines. So I've got a pipeline creation background in my previous life, and there's definitely an element of having flooded the email channel, like, all right, well, when you first had it and you were able to go and increase the volume of outreaches you were making, then you were probably the first early users of that. So kind of differentiating. And I compare that to being the first person to ever drive a car in a city, right? No traffic jams, nothing. You actually go faster. Now everybody's got a car. You're getting stuck in traffic now. Is already who's got the best sat nav.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you, from your experience with us at Imagino in previous roles, how do you differentiate yourself from the competition on the outreach side when you send emails or contact people?
I think a really key point is there's no actual right or wrong way in sales, and you shouldn't be afraid to try anything new. I think salespeople are often scared of certain things, that they might step out of line or do something wrong, or someone might put the phone down on them. But you've just got to be innovative. Particularly in the industry that I'm in, there's such innovative things going on. You've just got to try new things, send people videos, just try something new, try and be different, try and be noticed, stand out from the crowd, and often just be a human rather than a salesperson. Like you say, to your point, like an email channel, it's just exhausted now. People just get bogged down in dodgy metrics like open rates and click-throughs, but you just need to go and actually talk to someone, get in front of them, and understand the problem. That's what our job is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everybody agrees email is, you can't rely solely on email. It's too crowded. There's too much noise for you to stand out. What are you finding is the most successful touch point as someone who's built up a go-to-market strategy before for another company, especially top of funnel, and now you're doing it again? What are you finding is the most successful touch point for you?
Before you do that, just before, I just had a thought. I actually sent 60 videos out the other day and I got 0 response. So I thought they were dead good as well, but so it doesn't always work. What was your question again? Sorry.
What are you finding is the most successful touch point within your outbound motions?
I'd say events, dear boy. Get to events at the minute. Turn up to events and speak to people. Make them aware of your product. Make them aware of who you are. Be friendly. There is no better place right now for us than being at events with people who you want to sell to, but don't sell to them. Go and talk to them about the challenge. That's been absolutely pivotal, particularly post-COVID. I actually think people want to get out there and talk to people. Particularly, I think the last year after COVID, people were catching up with friends and family and whatnot. And I've really seen a lot of opportunity and a lot of forums where marketers are really looking to engage with other people and learn from other sectors, from other individuals, from people in different parts of businesses. And and just going off conversations with people. Yeah, we are doubling down on that massively.
Yeah, that's a great bit of insight actually as well. We are seeing more and more events coming into the space as well, so for a lot of people to check out. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we go to all of them. They're free drinks usually, so we like it. And I agree with you. I think people are craving a little bit of personal connections and yeah, like physical contact. Not to turn into a fight like Hitesh does, but actually see people and read body languages and all of that. You spoke earlier during the call about helping people build additional budgets or recycle their existing budget lines. I find that particularly difficult to do because those are like conversations I'm not necessarily qualified to have. And is there a way to manage these conversations?
Definitely. I've really, one of the biggest ever deals I signed recently for the very household British brand. It was actually very lucky how we ended the RFP process. They needed another vendor in there. They hadn't really heard of us. I quickly got on the phone to the individual to understand the depth of the RFP past the piece of paper that we had in front of us. And we very quickly made that RFP our language with that process. I think from what I can gather from the digging that I did, everyone was just there filling out forms. It was against us. There was 16 people in the process. It was a long shot at first, but we quickly got in front of them, got on the phone to them, understood all of the different stakeholders in the process. And we very quickly drew their problem into our world and into our language and into our process. And we changed the whole RFP. So we actually, rather than just responding to the RFP, we got them into a room and actually did a strategic workshop to try and understand what they were trying to achieve at a strategic level, what data they didn't have, what wasn't going well, and therefore how that was impacting their marketing technology. And we used the language of the problem, but it was all in our world. It was exactly in our wheelhouse, and it worked extremely well. And we built such good personal relationships in those workshops. People actually felt us and liked us and thought, this is what it's like to work with these people. They're going to deliver some real value to us, and they can actually help solve our strategic problem. They really understand the data. They're really actually good at that. They have some credibility here and some clients like us. And you've got the technology behind them. The product is good, but again, we didn't lead with the product. It was, understanding the problem strategically, and then the rest followed. And that was probably one of the most rewarding successes I've ever had actually in my sales career, because the price point at the end was, you'd added that much value. The contract is just signed. It wasn't, but you know what I mean? It was that part was quite seamless. I
always find it refreshing when you're able to turn the tables in your favor within a competitive RFP process, especially what you said about bringing them into your own world. You went the extra mile outside of form filling. Usually, that face-to-face interaction, getting them in a room, being able to read body language exponentially increases your chances, I feel.
Definitely. And and again, to the human point, we just really got on with them. Like, you're in a room with them, you're talking about things, you're having a laugh. It was just, and you can feel that you're getting there at that point. And then to the point of momentum, it's like, right, the next stage of the RFP is 4 weeks away. Sack that. Let's meet again in 2 weeks. And you just know that you're ahead of the pace.
If you can become a that's what we call A colon internally, where actually you're becoming the differentiation, the comparison point, then it's really hard for anyone else to compare. What I find difficult when an RFP happens is you never know who is actually influencing the requirements. And
with that RFP, at first it felt like we were there as a benchmarking exercise, which can often feel quite it's a kick in the teeth, really, isn't it? Like, you're about to do a huge RFP process and you're probably just there to be benchmarked against someone else's relationship. But getting in front of them quickly, understanding the challenge, replaying that back to them, and then offering them a solution out, it works well. It makes it sound very easy, but it isn't.
It's really hard. It's probably one of the hardest pieces of work someone in sales can take on, I think, and win, is especially if you're not driving it. I think well done, man. From an individual contributor viewpoint, Tom, you must have gone through a lot of like deal review sessions with management and more senior stakeholders in your organization.
Yeah.
What's the recipe for success for an efficient deal review session versus one that fails?
Great question. I think it's been brutally honest in those sessions. I had a great sales leader, Jay Cromack, in my last role, who was very good at being brutally honest in those kinds of conversations. I think with deals, particularly with a lot of the RFPs I've had recently, the 80-20 model, when we had so many RFPs in, you having a process set, having the information that you can replicate and put in a place is key. The information, so having a place where your information is and where you can draw that information quickly out to get through the bulk of things is key. And then that enables you as a team to really focus on that last 20% of here's our magic, here's our differentiators. And here's really where we can offer a very different solution. Reviewing that, like I said, those early RFPs that I've done were chaotic. I think it's quickly knowing that you need a process with a small group of people that are all have a very specific role in a deal, and just cutting the noise out. I'm being brutally honest. Places are very political when big deals are involved. And I think being brutally honest with each other about where this is going and checking in and checking on where people are, if it's going in the right direction. Again, that's sales. I see that as my role entirely. It's connecting internally and making sure we're all in the right place. The right tasks have been done to the right time to enable the other people to do this at the next phases is absolutely key. Our job is pipeline and deal management, and you have to manage egos, politics, and ultimately you have to drive that thing forward yourself.
Awesome. Yeah. If only there was a tool that can help with processes. All right. So look, I appreciate you coming on. We're almost out of time, but we do have a bit of a tradition on the show for the final question. So what is in your career today, and it doesn't need to be when you're in the software world, it can be environment. What's your favorite memory to date?
Wow.
Outside of this podcast, obviously.
You know what? It was quite a juxtaposition here, but pre-COVID, I honestly thought it was all going to take off. We'd ran an event with one of our key clients, PlayStation, where we talked about a huge case study that we did with them. And we had 66 like very, very, very senior marketing people in a room, and my pipeline was full of love. And the crash that happened after it was one of the darkest places I've been in my career. But to turn it around, I learned so much in that moment. I think as a salesperson, you never learn from the wins. And I think that's really when I turned my A game on and really started to be process and data driven. So it's not like I won in £1 million moment here. I think that's really where I've really changed my approach to pushing product and starting to think, right, you actually need to add value here and listen to people's problems rather than pushing things at people.
Might have to rephrase that final question now based on that. What's your favorite memory that made you change the way you do things, which is actually a lot more insightful. So appreciate your answer. That's really, really good. And look, this has been the Revenue Revolution podcast sponsored by Jointflows. Tom, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Lovely to see you again.
Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.